presentation and we'll get going. Let's see. There we go. All right. How's this? All right. You guys should be able to see that. Okay, cool. So, loading. Let me know if you guys can see that. Is that up for you guys? Let me know in the chat. I want to be able to see the chat as well. Oh, there we go. Nice. All right, cool. I want to be able to see that as well. Nice. All right. So at times I will check in with that, but it seems like that probably isn't going to go well with my presentation. But so for the time management myth, I think it's important that we start with realizing that there is a gap between time management and the reality of how we actually spend our time, right? And so this is the thing that I'm going to be talking about today. So it's not just productivity, but it's also the reality of motivation. So let's might be a little slow. Okay, there we go. So the first thing is, why should you care? Because if you don't see the reason why this is important, then you're probably not going to pay attention. You're probably not going to take notes. But I'll start with this. I wasn't going to say this, but I think it's important to note here. So the philosopher, I studied philosophy at university. This was like my thing. And Seneca was one of my favorite Greek philosophers, this very badass dude. And he said, life is not short, it's that we waste most of it. And the reason why I think that's important here is because when you realize that we actually do have a lot of time, but because we're, as Katie was saying before, we don't have the proper inner game, we're not spending our time wisely, right? And here's the first thing, is that you are your business, right? So how you manage yourself is how you're going to spend your time in your business, the opportunities you see that are possible for you. So if we're talking about manifestation, when you have certain possibilities that are available to you because you've managed your mind, you can see opportunities in front of you and you're going to be able to act on them. But if you haven't managed your mind, if you haven't worked through certain things like limiting beliefs, then the evidence that is there in the environment for you to be able to see an opportunity and act on it is just not going to be there. Because fear, as Katie was saying, it narrows your focus. It doesn't allow you to see the evidence that you could possibly do that thing, right? So it's important. So you are your business. So if you can't manage yourself, how can you manage your business, right? We very often seek external forms of control, for example, time management, and trying to perfect every little thing about our schedule as a way to create expectation. And expectation, as we know in psychology, is about creating safety and predictability, right? This is something that I know very well, right? But this is a way that we try to create control of our business and our outcomes, when in fact, the real thing we're doing is we're creating a kind of self-sabotage by the blind spots within us, right? So it is an inner game, right? This talk is going to be about the inner game. It's going to be about something called self-worth theory. Okay, so this self-worth theory is one of the main things that has helped me overcome my procrastination, because I probably am not alone here. I'm actually going to pull up that chat. If you guys ever deal with procrastination or anxiety, or you feel like you're running on all cylinders all the time, just leave it in the chat just so I know I'm not alone. And I'm just going to leave it here. I feel so exposed. Okay. All right, good. I'm not alone here then. All right. Well, you're going to feel very, very exposed later on when I tell you about my story, when I tell you about what's going on. Okay, cool. I'm just reading the chats. I'm the worst. Okay, right. So we already see the kind of inner dialogue going on, right? Like the negative self-talk, right? So I'm the worst. This is terrible. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for saying that. I appreciate you guys not leaving me hanging here. So another way to say this, I think my computer is going to be a little slow. 2 people raised their hand. So I'm seeing you guys raise your hand. If you guys have a question, and if that's why you're raising your hand, feel free to just leave it in the chat. But if you're raising your hand saying, hey, me too, that's cool too. So let me just go to the next thing. Yeah, so here's another way to say why you should care about this, is that the way I see it is that time is not our most valuable resource because it's not a resource that we have. We're those, it's strange, but time moves through us. We don't control time. You know, we don't have more or less hours in the day. The same as Elon Musk, we have 24 hours in a day, right? So it's how we manage our attention. That is the most important resource that we have, right? And the way that we manage our attention, which you're going to see soon, is not by managing our time, but by managing our emotions. Okay, so the way that you manage your emotions and your focus is what determines how wisely you spend your time. So that's kind of what I'm just saying here. But the way we manage our minds determines how wisely we spend our time, right? And as a business owner, if you started a business owner, if you started a business, or if you are thinking about starting a business, which I think a lot of you are here trying to think about that. If this is you, just know that once you start to get momentum, you're going to be inundated with flooded, right? If you don't know that word, you're going to be flooded with many good opportunities. And this was a challenge for me. I'll get into my story in a second. I know we're starting with more, theory and stuff like that, but I'll get into my story in a second. But yeah, this was a big challenge for me. I struggled with people pleasing. I struggled with trying to be everything for everyone. And as we know in branding, that just doesn't work. It doesn't resonate with people. But authenticity was a struggle for me because I really wanted to be perfect. And until I worked with my own coach, I really didn't find out how to go through that and move through that. But because I was inundated with all these opportunities, I was like, okay, I got to make a list. And I'm wondering if you guys are like me, where you have these ever expanding to-do lists. Like you get like 3 things done in the day, and then you get done and it's like, okay, so I got 3 things done, but in that day I realized I have 5 more things to do. So raise your hand if you have this ever expanding to-do list, like me. 4 people raise their hand, 5 people raise their hand. Okay, so I'm not alone here. Got it. Right, I didn't expect that because I do have some data on this. I did a lot of market research and with my clients and with people like me. So I know I'm not alone. Yeah. So let's kind of get into it. Here's what we're going to cover. The 3 things we're going to cover. Doing things in threes is always good. The shortcomings of time management, which I'm kind of already getting into, but I'm going to go through a little bit of my experience and some of the cycles and where it falls short, right? Because if we're just focusing on time management, it's not enough, right? So one thing to kind of put a pause here, I'm not saying that you're not supposed to, it doesn't matter if you schedule your time, right? I have a schedule. I'm just no longer focusing on it by the minute. Okay, I have to check this. I've done this, right? Because what I found out is that is very much attached to my sense of worth, right? That's a big part of self-worth theory that we're going to get into. But it's a great add-on, managing your time, right? Just like having schedules and batching are great, but they're not an end all. And I think that's the trouble or the danger here, is that if we think that, oh, if I just get this time management system, then I'm going to be good, then I'm going to be productive. And it ends up making us feel like there's something wrong with us, like there's something that maybe we're incapable, or maybe that we're lazy because this time management system didn't work, or the Eisenhower matrix, if anyone knows that, right? It's the important, urgent, unimportant, right? And the urgent, unimportant, important, but unurgent, right? And non-urgent, right? You know this matrix, right? Like we think, oh, if that doesn't work, then what's wrong with me, right? This works for everyone else. Why isn't it working for me? Well, there's a lot more to the reality of what gets you to act than simply just time management, right? So we're going to go kind of point out the shortcomings of that, right? At least in my experience and experience of my clients. Then we're going to go into the theory of self-worth and what truly motivates us. And we're going to go into procrastination, which is, I think, the more honest, the more real culprit here, not managing our time. And then we're going to go into the solutions for time management that are better than time management, that are the cause of your lack of time, right? So we're going to go into that. Let's dive in. So, shortcomings of time management. I'm going to just, before I kind of load the next page, I'm just going to kind of tell you about my experience. So when I first started out as a coach years ago, I first of all, there's the imposter syndrome, right, which is the kind of chronic self-doubt, right, despite your competence. There is the imposter syndrome in that block that gets you to like kind of feel when you start, it's like, am I good yet? Am I good yet? Right. So that was already there, right? But what made me feel even more like an imposter and made me struggle even more was that I felt like a hypocrite. Like I was trying to, like I said before, really manage every single piece of my time, right? I was trying to check my phone. Am I getting things done at the right time, right? And like I said before, I was creating expectations. I was creating time blocks of when I have to get things done, living a life of I have to, in order to motivate myself because I didn't trust myself to do things based on passion. I'm wondering if that connects with any of you guys. If it does, just put it in the chat, 100 or whatever you want to do. But that was it. And because I didn't trust myself to do the things that I said I would, so I had to pressure myself, right? I had to say, overwhelm myself as a way to get myself to push forward, right? I actually, this is very common for perfectionists, felt addicted to feeling behind. And I'm wondering if that connects with you guys as well. Let me just check in the chat for a second just to see that you guys are there with me. Yeah, some hundreds resonates. Cool. All right. All right, cool. All right, so that just threw me off track. But what I was saying is that I'm actually trying to catch myself. So I was just saying that, yeah, let me start here. So I felt very overwhelmed in my business, like I was just saying. And for me, it was really important that I found a way out of that, right? So I had this kind of overwhelming long to-do list of things that I was managing with my time, right? And for me, it was really, really just, it made me feel like an imposter, like I was saying before. And this is what I found to be the cause of all of this, was this cycle, like I'm telling you here, is procrastination, which caused me to feel guilty, which then caused me to criticize myself and then feel overwhelmed and procrastinate more, right? So, yeah, here's what I was saying before, right? Is that procrastination is not about time management. It's not about, oh, if I just get this thing right, if I just get this time management tool, or if I remove these distractions, then I'm going to be fine. Procrastination is actually discomfort avoidance. So if we just have time management, right? If we just tell our people in our company to just do this, and then we're going to do this at this time, we're treating ourselves like machines. We're not considering our own emotions. We're not considering our fears. We're not considering, as Katie said before, the inner game, right? But what happens is when we procrastinate, there's this thing called the procrastination guilt cycle, because it's a cycle, right? Where we procrastinate and then we feel guilty because we procrastinated. At the end of the day, we finish a whole busy day of work. And after that, we feel, okay, I didn't actually do the thing that I said I wanted to. And that makes me criticize myself. And we criticize ourselves because we take that procrastination as a sign of our lack of worth, right? It's a sign that we're not performing at our optimal, right? Which means that we're not good enough, right? And that overwhelms us. And when we criticize ourselves, we pressure ourselves to do better next time. And so that's where that sense of overwhelming ourselves with pressure, with, oh, I'm falling behind, and I get addicted to falling behind, that's the overwhelm that comes in. So when we procrastinate, we're actually avoiding the sense of anxiety we have around the task, right? So it's not about controlling our time. So I just put this up here. Let me see if you guys can see the whole thing. Well, it's kind of cut off there, but you guys should be able to see. It's how would you describe your current state? And this is a Google form that I used for my clients, right? It's kind of like a market research. And what is their current state in life? I know that I was not alone because I described myself in the same way in the past. Is I felt stuck. I felt scattered, imbalanced, and I'm actually going to describe these feelings. So you already know what it means. You already know how it feels to be stuck, to be scattered, to be imbalanced. But I'm going to actually talk a little bit more about them. So the reason why you feel stuck, right, as you can't move, is because what you'll realize in self-worth theory, as I'm going to talk about later, is that procrastination is not a lack of motivation. It's actually a conflict of motivation. So procrastinators are actually overmotivated by fear. They're not undermotivated or lazy, right? So there is a type of approach motivation where you are driven to succeed and to live in accordance with purpose, with what you want. And then there is this kind of escape motivation where you're driven away from failure, away from what failing might mean about you, right? We're taking that as a sign of failure, which is a sign of our incompetence, which is when people see it, a sign that we are worthless, and then we're going to be abandoned and alone, right? So this is the kind of unconscious, not conscious, very unconscious process, right? And to connect this back with your day-to-day, right? Because we're getting very conceptual in the subconscious. To connect this back to your day-to-day, we're talking about core beliefs, right? Some kind of I am statement. And when you don't address those core beliefs that are kind of manifesting themselves, then your thoughts, your emotions, and your beliefs, all of them, they spring out of your core assumptions about the world, about yourself, and about others. So it's important to address these for very subtle, maybe not obvious or explicit reasons, but at the core of why you do what you do, why you think what you think, and why you feel what you feel actually is your core beliefs. And they build assumptions about the world, and then the opportunities you have, the things you think, the choices you make are a result of these core beliefs, right? So that's why at the heart of the CBT model, cognitive behavior therapy, but also at the heart of a lot of coaching modalities that I've studied, is core beliefs and getting to the subconscious, right? So a little connection there of why this is important, because you don't see it, but there's an underlying river, the underlying river on this like kind of icy kind of like gap between your conscious world, your conscious reality, and the underlying surface, this flowing river, right? And us coaches pick at that surface, right? So here's what I realized was happening, and I'm going to kind of list this out a little bit. What I realized was happening for me and why time management didn't work for me was I was criticizing myself, and I wasn't addressing the core, as I talked about before, the core beliefs. I wasn't actually addressing myself. I wasn't giving compassion to myself. I wasn't understanding myself. Okay, I'm going to get these things done because this is what I think is the amount of time that it deserves. And when I didn't meet those, I felt like I was not good enough. I felt that there was something wrong with me because I wasn't achieving those things, right? The next thing I was doing, and this one, like, I'm still like working on, but I'm trying to get this out of the way. Let's do that. It's so much better. So I was letting a lot of urgent things that were just not important, I was letting them kind of capture my attention. So I'm sure you guys have the experience where you're sitting down, you have a plan for the day, you have your priorities set, and then just something happens. A teammate asks you something, or your partner asks you something, or maybe you have some kind of other commitment that comes up, or something jumps in your face, or social media jumps out at you, and maybe it's trying to teach you something. Maybe there's a post that you really want to read, and you actually don't get the things done that you said you would, right? So we have trouble setting those boundaries, as I said before, right? Let me check in with the time. Okay, cool, 20 minutes. So the third thing I was doing is I was letting anxiety drive me. Yeah, so like for me, I felt this kind of constant state of I had to rush through the things that I was doing. I felt that besides my coaching sessions, I felt like I had to rush to get a bunch of things done, and that it was actually because of my sense of lack of competence that I felt that I needed to rush to prove that I could be productive and competent. So that was happening, right? I was only giving myself permission to enjoy life and to love myself, and felt that sense of gratitude for who I was when I was productive, right? So this is productivity-based self-worth. And I was overworking to overcompensate for my feeling of being behind, and I was letting perfection get in the way of my progress. So now I want to take a little more time. So let me move this out of the way real quick. The things that you do become important. The things that you, oh, there you go. So I'm gonna open up the chat. I'm gonna play this for 1 second. Let me know if you guys are hearing this. All right, let me know if you're hearing that. Do become important because you're. Are you hearing that? Let's see. Cool. All right, cool. I'm gonna play it in a second. First, just let me know what are you guys getting from this so far? So Mick wants to see that slide one more time. Mick, are you talking about that last slide, or are you talking about this video? The last slide. Right. Okay. So we're talking about, yeah, sorry about that. I think I probably went a little bit too fast on that. No, let me skip that. This one right here, right? I think you guys are talking about that. Right. So you could, I would suggest screenshotting this. If this resonates with you, I'll give you guys a few seconds and enjoy that. And whenever you guys feel ready, just let me know, and I can move on. Let me bring up that chat. Cool. Yeah, thanks, Mick. Glad you're taking some notes here. All right. Cool. All right, let's let it play. The things that you do become important because you're going to feel productive doing them instead of the true value of the thing. I consider this toxic productivity. This idea that somehow in a slippery manner, the value slips from the doing of the actual, the deed or whatever it might be, the value slips into productivity because productivity is attached to your self-worth. So because self-worth is a deeper need than whatever that other achievement is, your brain sees a task as not a route to something deeper, some value that is in the actual task, but simply as a means towards the end of you having high self-worth. Okay, so I wanted to bring that up. I want to kind of like bring my face back up again. I like seeing my face. Let's see. That should be good. Cool. So I wanted to point this out because I think it's important to kind of make that connection that I'll bring up right here. So that connection is that we have a subconscious kind of recipe for what makes us motivated, right? And what this is PAW. Performance equals ability equals worth, right? So the way that this sounds in our minds is I need to perform well, right? I need to do well on this presentation, for example. I need to do well on that presentation at work. I need to do well on this next post because that is a sign, that is evidence of how capable I am, right? So in self-worth theory, one of the core beliefs is that our competence determines our worth. We think it determines our worth, right? What we are capable of, how valuable we are. And in human behavior, what you should know about human behavior is that there's that hierarchy of needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which I didn't bring here, but those needs are biologically put into us to get us to act, right? So if you don't have safety in terms of like your home or comfort or food, those things, you're going to be very driven to get those needs met, right? But one of our also core beliefs or core needs as well is the need to think of ourselves in a positive state. So the idea of self-worth theory is that we will sacrifice more surface level needs like our productivity to be able to save our self-worth. So that's why we procrastinate. So it's important to realize, I'm wondering if I should do that. Hold on guys, I just want to do that. So it's not just, oh, bye guys. Okay, all right. You fell down. I got you guys back. Don't worry, I caught you. Hold on, guys. Okay. All right, there you go. How's that? Good. So I think it's important to realize that what's on the line when you're trying to get something done, why it makes you so anxious is because it's not just your productivity that's on the line. It's your sense of worth, your sense of being a good person or being a capable person or being fit for being an entrepreneur. Right? We think that it says something about who we are, right? So I'm taking the next couple of slides. I'm just taking it from a post that I have on my Instagram. So, you'll see it's a different format, but I think it's great. I think I explained it really well here. It's going to go into the main thing I'm talking about today, which is actually emotional management and procrastination and how time management isn't really the thing, right? So here we're going to go into it in a second. Okay, so let's start with here. Out of these 8, let me know which are the ones that you most often feel happen in your life. Whenever you procrastinate or you don't do the thing that you said you were going to do, or you procrastinate work, right? We don't just procrastinate by being lazy, right? Or just like doing nothing, or just like totally avoiding it and going on social media. We also procrastinate by doing tasks that we have to do on our to-do list, but are not the most important things, right? So we procrastinate work. We fill our time with not really busy work, but things that are just not the needle movers, right? So comment below, is it for you, is it feeling unprepared that you kind of over prepare and then you never start? Like, I'm planning to do it. Yeah, I'm planning. I got to make sure I plan. Or is it maybe that you feel like, what if I don't fail? Like, what if I don't achieve it? Or what if I don't do well? Or what if I can't learn that thing? Like, is it a fear of failure? Is it the what ifs? Maybe that's you. Or maybe it's this idea that the task is just too big and you don't know where to start. So you're like, well, forget it. I mean, I don't know where to start, so I'm just not going to start. Or maybe it's one of the other ones, right? You feel like, oh, I'll be focused later. Yeah, I could do it later because right now, my partner is playing music. Right now, my roommate is, in the house, or there's always things that you can make excuses for. So let me know in the comments, what are the things that you really experience when you procrastinate? So I'm seeing 1 through 4, right? So unprepared, fear of failure. Okay. So someone put, okay, yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, no 7, right? So someone had everyone but 7, right? So this is funny to me because these are all things that I've dealt with as well, right? So it's so interesting to see that it's like, yeah, all of them for a lot of people. But it's good to see that, again, that none of us are alone here, right? We all handle procrastination, and it's important to name the culprit, right? It's not about managing our time. It's about the way that we manage our emotions, right? Which is being able to do the things that we want to do despite the discomfort, right? Because as we know, procrastination is discomfort avoidance, right? So it's good to keep that in mind. Yeah, thanks. I think you guys are like really getting in there. Bunch of comments. That's awesome. Like, very happy that you guys are picking some stuff up on here. And thanks for being so, engaged. I like that. So let's move on. I just gave it away. So notice what's common in all of these, right? And I just went to the next slide so you guys will see it. What's the common theme in all of these things is that it's attached to your self-image. So let's go back. So you feel unprepared because you don't feel competent, right? The reason it's not about the task, it's about you feeling unprepared to take on the task, right? It's about your sense of what you think you're capable of. You're afraid of failing because you feel that others are going to reject you if you fail. You feel that you'll be a failure, right? It's your self-image. The task is too big because you don't think that you're capable of breaking it down, of making a decision and deciding and starting, even if it's in the potential wrong place, and then learning along the way. You feel that it's too big, I don't know where to start, so I'm going to not start because I might choose wrong, and I'm not okay with that, right? I bet that sounds familiar. That did for me. So it's your self-image, right? That's what we're focusing on here. And what I said before, as one of the strongest tenets of what gets us to act, is one of our most important, at least emotional needs, is to see ourselves as capable, as competent, as able, right? If we don't see ourselves as competent, we feel that we're stupid, we feel that we're worthless. And this, as Carl Rogers said, and Carl Rogers was he created person-centered therapy, which ended up kind of trickling into the field of life coaching. So some people call Carl Rogers the foundation of life coaching. But what he said was that self-esteem, self-worth is a mobilizing force. And I always remembered that, because getting ourselves to do things, we need to be able to feel capable of doing those things, right? So you see how important and central this is, that if you can have all the plans in the world, but if you don't believe you can, right, you're not going to start anything. You're not going to do anything. You're going to find excuses for that, right? We only try what we think we're capable of, if it makes sense. So our beliefs inform our potential, and our potential informs our actions, and our actions inform our results, and our results inform our beliefs. This is a quadrant thing that I got from Tony Robbins, but it really explains the cycle of beliefs. So yeah, basically we want to feel competent, right? Hope you guys like my little anecdotes and little things that I jump around with. I hope you guys like that. So when this is kind of just describing it more, when we don't feel capable, when we don't feel competent, we avoid, we procrastinate. Like I said before, procrastination is not us sabotaging ourselves. It's us protecting ourselves from trying something, failing, and then feeling worse about it, right? So it's that same thing before that Katie was saying. It's fear. Fear is a projection of a past pain. It is a projection of an insecurity that you developed from a past pain that happened. It is a kind of hallucination based on the past and your insecurities. You're coloring the future with your own insecurities. That's what fear is, right? This is just a free association, but there's a movie that I watched, Apocalypto, and in the movie, there's like this tribe, and this elder is talking to this younger tribe member and saying that fear is a disease, and that if you let it, come into your heart, everyone in the entire tribe is going to die, right? And I found that to be so profound, right? That fear, of course, fear is a natural thing. It happens all the time. It's our brain's almost default mode, because in biology, this is how we survived, is by being anxious, because when we're anxious, we're actually hypervigilant. Our nervous systems become hypervigilant. And then we use that hypervigilance to look for patterns in the world. So I want to kind of say that as a precursor here, is that anxiety isn't something is wrong with you. It's pretty much the default of being human, we're starting to realize. And it's a part of the human condition. I think the philosophers like Kierkegaard found that out. If you don't know Soren Kierkegaard, he found that out pretty early on, that the human condition is full of existential dread and anxiety. And it's what we do about it that matters, right? So just know that anxiety is almost a default state, but there are things that we can do about it that can make the human condition, make our lives better, right? So a little spiel about anxiety, but I think it's worth it. So, And anxiety leads to procrastination. Yeah, we're back here, right? So when we don't feel that we are capable of achieving something, we're fearing that it's gonna mean something about our worth, and then we avoid, we procrastinate. Okay, so let's jump into the next thing. We procrastinate because we see our performance linked to our worth. I already said this, right? And of course, it's a temporary protection. Like I said before, I said this, right? It's this, we protect ourselves temporary. And just like any other coping mechanism, I think this is worth saying, like any other coping mechanism that we have, for example, procrastination is one coping mechanism. People pleasing is a coping mechanism. Perfectionism is a coping mechanism. All these coping mechanisms, they are a short-term solution that end up causing the problem in the long run, right? So here's an example. You procrastinate to avoid the negative outcome of you having low self-worth because you failed, right? But because you procrastinated, you're actually proving to yourself that you're incapable of getting yourself to do the thing, which causes the low self-esteem that you're trying to avoid. You see the irony here? It's the same thing with perfectionism. It's a lot of different, this is how coping mechanisms are. This is the coping mechanisms are a response to trauma. And the most common trauma we feel is, I need to be something other than I'm not. I bet if you really check in, that is something that we've all felt. I need to be something that I am not. How often do you feel that in your business? I'm not there yet. I need to pretend. I need to do something else. And so procrastination protects us short-term from that. If you want to look up stuff later on about that, feel free to open up a new tab about coping mechanisms. I would highly suggest researching that, because that is going to help you to break out of a lot of self-limiting beliefs and cycles in your life, right? And that's very important. It's made me feel more free and my clients more free. So I think it's worth looking into. So yes, you get it. It's a cycle. So here, this is an important page, right? The rest of this talk is going to be about these three points. Okay, so this is what I'm positing as the alternative, right? So again, remember, this is the time management myth. So we're talking about how time management falls short and what to do instead, right? So I'm going to be explaining these three things here of what I did and what I do with my clients. It's practice self-awareness in a bunch of different ways. I'll be explaining to you guys the RAIN method. I'll be explaining to you guys a bunch of different ways to build self-awareness. Unlinking performance from self-worth, which is more of the proactive kind of long-term solution. And then hiring a coach. So if this becomes difficult, or you're not seeing through your own blind spots, or you're not sure what to do, then hiring a coach. I did both. Like when I was going through this myself, I read a lot of books. I took a lot of courses on perfectionism, on procrastination, on self-worth theory, and I also hired a coach, right? So it's up to you guys, whatever you feel is right for you. So now the rest of the talk is going to be explaining these 3 points. Better solutions in time management, raise self-awareness. Okay, let's get to the thing. Here are the 3 ways that I think you guys can raise your awareness. And remember that awareness precedes choice. Write that down in your notes. If you are not aware, I'll say this is in behavior economics, which is another field to look into. In behavior economics, one of the ideas is that until the pain of remaining the same is greater than the pain of change, you will not change. Nothing will change. And what this means is that you have to get in touch. You have to be willing to look honestly at what's happening inside of you in order to acknowledge that something needs to change. This is why we have these constant coping mechanisms of, let me just do the work. Let me just rush through it. Let me just get as much done as possible. This is why we're living on autopilot in our businesses, in our lives. And it's making us feel burnt out. It's making us feel stressed. It's making us feel overwhelmed. It's making us procrastinate. And then we end up believing that we're not enough, that we are incapable. It resonates with me. Hope it resonates with you guys. So ways to build self-awareness, right? Understanding the dynamics of self-worth and motivation, which is what I just described. If you want to go in deeper to that, look up self-worth theory and you can read about it. But understanding self-worth and understanding the fact that when you procrastinate and when you're being unproductive and when you're guilting yourself and when you're criticizing yourself later, these are all ways to try to protect you. So this is what's called parts work. It's looking at different parts of yourself and how they relate to each other and bringing compassion to them, right? So you have to build awareness around the parts of yourself that communicate with each other. And when you understand self-worth and how the way you criticize yourself is actually, for example, the way you criticize yourself is actually an attempt to make you learn your lesson, right? And that guilt is a moral emotion, and that the guilt is not trying to make you feel shame. It's not trying to push you and pressure you. Guilt is actually trying to make you a better person. It's holding you to a higher standard. And so when you acknowledge these, you're not going to say, oh, yay, more guilt. No, that's not the point. The point is when you recognize what's going on, the dynamics inside yourself, that awareness perceives choice. Then you can make different choices because you can say, oh, get it. So me calling myself an idiot isn't actually me trying to harm myself. I'm not actually sabotaging myself. I'm protecting myself. I'm trying to make myself a better person. I'm trying to make myself smarter. So doing this inner work of catching the ant, right? Automatic negative thought, catching those ants, and then cognitive reframing, right? Of saying, oh, I get what that's about. That's actually trying to make me better. Oh, got it. This is why self-awareness is so important, because otherwise you're going to be in this negative thought spiral. You're going to be feeling bad about yourself, and then you're actually just going to procrastinate more, and then you're not going to get things done, and then you're going to feel like an imposter in your business. Yeah, I've been there. Probably you guys have been there too. I've been talking for a while. If this is resonating, leave it in the chat. If you got questions, leave it in the chat. I'm just going to take a drink of water and just check the chat for a second. I know I've been talking for a while. I got 15 minutes, by the way, so. Yeah, pain remaining the same is greater than the pain of change. You guys are doing good, resonating, cool. This is gold, yay, that's good, glad to hear. Yeah, I'll give you guys a couple more seconds if you want to put some comments there. Ant, right, so automatic negative thoughts. You can look that up, it's not my term. Automatic negative thoughts. So what happens is we have this thing in our brains, this thing called the default modal network. It is the ways that we have habits. It's the ways that we know how to be in the world, right? And this kind of default setting of who we are, right? And ants, automatic negative thoughts, stem from those automatic assumptions we have about the world. Because if we had to think about everything, oh, who am I? Getting up to brush your teeth and what do I do? How do I brush my teeth, right? It's not good for us. We wouldn't survive, right? So we have to have this default network, but remaining a zombie, right? In some way, remaining stuck there, it's not going to help you in your life. It's not going to help in your business. You have to be able to become conscious of yourself and your internal process to be able to be a leader or, really great in your business or to have success in your business, right? So I think it's important. Negative self-talk. All right, cool. All right, so I'm going to move on. I have about 15 minutes, so I may go a little bit quickly through some of these things. I want to leave some time for commenting and questions. Understanding self-worth theory, which is what I just said, what I just talked about. Catching your excuses and stressors. This is another part of self-awareness, which I'm going to get to in the next slide. And then practicing self-soothing. And self-soothing meaning nurturing yourself with compassion and emotional understanding, right? Which is something that takes practice. And the last thing is emotional resilience and leaning into fear, which is something that I call emotional resilience training. So we'll get into that if we have some time. Raising awareness by catching the excuse. So I'll just say this quickly. Yes, we know that cleaning your fridge the day before is procrastination, but sometimes procrastination is very tricky. We don't know if doing that lower task is procrastination or not, right? Getting the inbox to 0. We don't know if that's procrastination or not. But when we go back, it's important to kind of catch the places that, oh, this is my common excuse. This is my common reason. And here's what it sounds like, because I showed you guys that slide before. Here's what it sounds like. Look at the left side. Oh, let me do this first. Okay, you know what? I'll start tomorrow. I'm not really in the best mood right now. I'm not ready. I'm not prepared enough. Or maybe it's, okay, yeah, let's do this. I just need a plan. I just need to plan step 14 before I take step 1, right? Meanwhile, when you take step 1, 2, and 3, you're going to realize that step 5, 6, and 7 is different. You're not trusting the unknown. That's what scarcity is when you're projecting your insecurities onto the unknown and having a need to control, right? It's a lot of what perfectionism is, right? A need to control, a lack of willingness to accept reality as it is. So that's that kind of, I need to control. That's the scarcity mindset. It's too late now. I can't do it. It's too late. Or maybe I need to take a quick break and I'll start after that. Or, oh, let me just do this one little thing first. And if you see on the right side, you're going to see Amy. This is just like on my Instagram. She's like, oh yeah, number 1 for sure. And someone else said, yeah, all of them, right? I think some of you guys mentioned that before. But catching your excuses, catching your common thoughts to yourself, that's important so that you can bring that awareness, wake up and say, oh, I'm about to procrastinate right now. And you're aware of what's causing you to procrastinate. Okay. So here's a common thing that people think is that stress is actually a bad thing, that it's not good for us. But there's this thing called eustress, EU stress. And maybe you've heard that when you were, I don't know, younger, maybe in college. It became that eustress became popular for a little while. But it's in a lot of like high performance circles, it's very popular. But that yellow area that you're seeing in that stress, the stress curve is what this is called. It's actually telling you that you actually need some level of stress to get yourself to act. So we don't want to say, okay, get rid of all anxiety, get rid of all negative emotions. That's not the point here. The point isn't to be completely self-confident at all time and delusionally self-confident in your business and just risk it all and believe in abundance and just believe in it and it's going to come, right? I don't ascribe to that. I think that, for example, something like manifestation, it's good for the reticular activating system in our brain to kind of create an internal image to try to replicate outside, but we have to do something about it, right? And doing something different requires that we face discomfort, right? Growth is on the edge of your comfort zone. We always hear that, but here's exactly why: is that we need to have a certain level of stress to actually be motivated to see that it's actually important. And on the right side of fatigue, exhaustion, leading almost to stress and overload and almost to panic, that is where the procrastinator sits at. That's where they lie. That's where they exist. And you want to kind of not move to the green space of being inactive and bored, but you want to have that nice flow state. If you've ever seen that flow chart, like it's like going up and it's between difficulty and easiness, and right in that middle zone is that zone of the flow state. If you guys know, I think it's called Mihai Csikszentmihalyi is the guy who created that. Maybe I'm saying his name wrong, but yeah, that you need a certain level of stress. So we're not trying to, in order to build your sense of being able to move through discomfort, which is procrastination, it's discomfort avoidance. To move through that discomfort, you need to be able to reframe how you view stress. That it's not a sign that you need to control everything, but it's a sign that you need to take an action, right? That there's something that you need to do about it, right? To move through it. Because if you avoid, you're just teaching yourself that you're not courageous enough to move into it, right? Especially if you're doing it consciously. So that's a small overview of what I consider emotional resilience training. And it takes time, but you can look that up. So here's the second thing I'm talking about with you guys. And this is a little bit more in depth. So it's unlinking productivity from self-worth. And what this comes down to is finding and changing our core beliefs, a technique called laddering, which is what I use, cognitive reframing, using a T-chart of evidence, create an accurate self-description, and proactively encouraging yourself and seeking positive evidence. Take a screenshot because I'm going to change this in a second. I want to just like make sure that you guys get everything, but give you guys a second to take a screenshot. And let's go. So what's a core belief? It's just so you guys can just have it for yourself to know what we're talking about. Core belief are our most deeply held assumptions about ourselves, about the world, about others. And it sounds like I'm incapable, or I'm stupid, and if you really want to share, it's up to you guys if you want to be vulnerable. If you want to leave something in the chat of what that sparks in you, or for example, the world is scary, or the world is full of opportunity, or people are judgmental, or people are very kind, or I am very smart, or I am worthless, or I'm unlovable, right? Or I'm lazy. If you want to share that in the chat, feel free to. I think it'd be great. But that's what a core belief sounds like. And that's important because, as I said before, your core beliefs are what produces all of your emotions and thoughts and behaviors, right? So this is the core of who you are. It's based on your beliefs and assumptions about yourself and the world and people. Right? So this is the core of psychology, I think. Why it matters, like I just said before, yeah, I just basically said this. All of your thoughts of what is possible, all your emotions, all your choices are based on the underlying assumptions. So I think I have something cool here. Yeah, so here's the laddering technique. I'm gonna drop this down to here or something like that. No, that's fine for me. Here's what it is, right? So it's something like this. Basically what I help my clients to do, this is one of the things, if they feel that this is what they need at that moment, is I continue to ask them, what would that mean about you? So if you had this thought that she didn't like this meal, that would mean, okay, I got it wrong. I'm not a good cook. And if I'm not a good cook, or if I have an evidence that I did this wrong, then this means that I can't keep people happy. This is another example, another reason why I know that I just can't keep people happy. And if I can't keep people happy, then I'm not valuable to them, then I am a failure, I am worthless. And if people find out that I'm worthless, then I'm gonna end up alone. So to protect that, I need to either avoid the situation where I'm cooking a meal for someone, or it could be presenting a situation or presenting a project for someone, or it could mean posting something or starting a business. I'm gonna avoid that situation, or I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna be so focused on controlling it that I can't possibly let anyone know that I believe that I'm not good enough for this. See how that happens? You see how we try to control and we overthink because we don't trust ourselves, because we don't believe in ourselves? Understanding this is foundational, because if you understand the things that are going on in your mind, you're going to be able to build new possibilities of what is available to you, because you're not going to be stuck in that same default network, that default mode of being. This is the stuff that gets me off. This gets me going. So this is a thought record. I'm going to just mention this really quickly. You can look it up if you want to do it yourself. I found this to be really helpful. I use this a lot with my clients. This is called the 7-column DTR. It is a daily thought record or a dysfunctional thought record, right? So basically it's finding the trigger of the situation that makes you feel a negative thought. And then I point these 2 green arrows to say that there's really, what you could do is make a T-chart of, here are facts that support the evidence of this core belief that I am really unlovable, and here is why I believe that, and facts against that make it feel like, oh, actually I'm not unlovable. I am lovable, right? So I'll leave it at that. Let me just check time. I have 4 or 5 minutes, and then hire a coach. So this is a pretty simple one. You can't see your own blind spots. That's why I have my own coach. That's why I bet Katie she said that she had her own coach. Every coach has a coach, right? We need to see our own blind spots. We can't do that. So I'll leave it at that. If that's something that you want to do, just know me, all the other coaches are here for you. And an overview, yeah, let's do that. We have a couple minutes. And I know that we're probably going to run out of time. So if you have some questions, feel free to leave them or feel free to message me. I'll put my LinkedIn and my Instagram down there so you can message me with your questions, or just leave them in the comments right now. That's okay too. But an overview of this is that time management systems don't consider the whole picture. The whole picture meaning your emotions, your self-worth, your sense of capability. You know, a lot of things are not considered with how we just naturally, how we try to manage our time, right? We have these expectations, and that it doesn't always see the whole picture. I'm not saying that this whole thing is not to say that time management systems don't work, but they are just add-ons. If you add on a good thing to a shitty system, a system that doesn't work well, that you are procrastinating and avoiding things, then time management isn't going to fix that. You're not addressing the core issue. In order to be productive, we must understand what motivates us, self-worth theory, understanding our self-worth and what motivates us. And then better than any other scheduling or efficiency tools is emotional management and decoupling your worth from your work, which is what I kind of talked to you about with the CBT at the end. So I'm going to skip this. This is the pain of remaining the same. These are a bunch of things that I'm just pretty much would tell you about how I feel that you will affect it if you don't do something about this. What's next? Consolidate your notes, reflect on the needs, what things need to be changed, commit to an action plan based on this new understanding of productivity and of your self-worth. And then if you want help, contact me or schedule a session by clicking the link in my social media bio. So I know I'm kind of moving quickly, but I also want to make sure I'm not going over time and give the other speakers some time to talk. But last thing, oh yeah, so I have this perfectionism handbook that goes a lot more in depth to the things that I was talking about today. So if you do want that, feel free to shoot me a message and I'll send it over to you. I don't have the link, but I'll send it over to you guys. And that's it. I'm gonna kind of not share my screen anymore, and then we can kind of go to some questions. Okay, can you, let's see if can I stop sharing? How do I do that?
Yeah, so on the bottom, there's like the share screen option. It should say stop sharing.
Got it, okay. I don't know why it's not doing that. I see, there we go. Is it new share or is it resume share? There we go.
There we go.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, leave it open for anybody that has any questions. I know we only have a minute, but
that was perfect. Did you get to Tara's question by any chance? Because she had a question.
No, I don't think so.
Perfect. So it's just in the Q&A section. It just says, how do you get from the right side of that curve to the left?
Right. So the right side to the left. So I think you're talking about the stress curve, and that on the right side, we're talking about burnout, and we're talking about a sense of overwhelm. And I think I may have already answered it in that in the other slides, but getting to that place where you feel motivated, you feel like you're focused, there's a lot of different strategies. There's not just the things that I mentioned, but things that I use are reinterpreting that sense of anxiety, unless it's real like crazy burnout, unless I'm like totally done and I need to take a break, that's okay. But oftentimes when I'm feeling stressed, it's because I'm believing that this thing is what is causing me, this like thing that I have to do. This is what's getting in the way of me being productive. And if I feel like I have to get rid of my anxiety in order to act, that for me just never truly works. A lot of the times I simply look at motivation as bigger than the anxiety and the discomfort of stepping forward. That's a big step, is reframing your anxiety. But there's more. That's just one way of doing it. There's also the long-term proactive response to feeling burnt out and overwhelmed. And I have a workshop that I do on burnout that I have recorded that I could send to you guys if you want to get over burnout, because that's the right side of that curve that you're talking about, Tara. But there's one solution for you is reframing your anxiety, but there's also taking breaks. There's a whole bunch of things. There's setting boundaries with the burnout and the ways that you're kind of giving your time away. And there's also getting to the core beliefs, like I said before, that actually make you burn out, that make you feel a sense of hopelessness. Because burnout, which is on that right side, is not just overworking. It's also about a sense of cynicism and a lack of belief in yourself, which leads to a sense of hopelessness, right? So burnout is much more about our beliefs about ourselves and how we give up because we say, whatever, I'm done. I tried so hard and still I'm incapable, so I'm done, right? So that is what burnout is. It's not just overworking, and getting over that requires us going to the core beliefs here. So I'll leave it at that. Other questions are available, but I just don't want to take any more of Michelle's time.